So the mental health in the world of tennis, flashpoint in recent memory, Naomi Osaka saying that post-match interviews were negatively affecting her mental health. And that is, I imagine, what Kyrgios would call softness, which is saying, no, you do what you need to do. These arbitrary rules that you either, there's one speed, and if you can't go at that speed, then
literally and figuratively, because he plays very, very quickly. And then the whole match was at his pace, actually. But I think, interestingly, I mean, if I'm going to dive into more analysis on it, I think he uses press conferences as a platform to cause more controversy and bring himself more attention. So to him, they're always going to be a positive thing. But I think to someone, say, like Naomi Osaka, I mean, nobody likes being asked questions about how they feel after they've lost a match. But I think it does affect different people in different ways. And obviously there's a lot of pressure that comes with wanting to give the answer you want to give, perhaps not being able to do that. And sometimes obviously there's a lot of social anxiety. Not all tennis players are complete naturals in front of the camera or when they're being asked difficult questions and things like that. And it might be incredibly mentally draining to have to constantly attend press conferences after each match. I mean, I'm sure it is an incredibly demanding thing during a Grand Slam particularly. So I think it's really valid to think about the mental health impact of everything that happens to a tennis player while they're on tour, and how there isn't time or space given within the tour schedule over the year for people to actually have a break and reset themselves mentally. And I think it's something that tennis needs to look at.
There's also the pressure on women in society of all the things that is expected of them is catastrophic and colossal just for the anonymous person on the street. And with Wimbledon, it's what you said, it's the 100th year of it, all these traditions that are made by men for men. All of it is built to support men, and men just have to show up and play, and they can do whatever they want and know that there isn't going to be any consequences. Women show up and straight away clothing. It's only this year reading an article I thought how perilous it is wearing white if you might be on your period.
Indeed.
And how...
Yes. Sorry about you.
I'm going to say, and how the boys will be boys attitude sort of means that you can do whatever you want in the moment because there's no pressure on you, no institutional pressure on you. For their entire lives, girls are taught that periods are shameful and embarrassing and that they should be hidden at all costs.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine being on centre court with all those cameras on you and you're worried about having something that the entire world will see. And I can't imagine that.
It's an interesting one, really. I'm going to reference the tennis podcast again because one of their main presenters, Catherine Whitaker, who does a lot of work presenting the Amazon Prime coverage of the tennis tour, and is a very keen feminist and often talks a lot about women's issues in tennis, raised this very point again about the all-white tradition and how it's a problem for women. And David and Matt, the co-presenters of the podcast, David actually owned up and said, before we had this conversation, it didn't even enter my head that it might be a problem, which I think shows, I think a lot of men and potentially even women might not have even considered how wearing all white might be an issue for women who are playing, who happen to be on their period, and having that anxiety in the back of your mind, oh, what if I stain something, or like, what if I don't have enough spares to change, or different things like that. Because, like, you're running around, leaping all over the place, playing a really physical game of tennis. Of course, stuff's potentially going to happen when you're on your period, and it's going to make playing a hell of a lot harder emotionally and mentally, because you might be in a crap mood, you might be in physical pain, you might just be feeling, mentally all over the place and very emotional, which will make staying calm and solid in a match a lot harder. I mean, I don't play tennis, so I can't comment. I'm incredibly passionate watcher of tennis, but yeah, I think there's a lot of issues there. Also, you mentioned that the men come in and do things and there is no consequences. Technically, there's consequence of being fined, but I want to clarify that to tennis players, a fine of, say, I don't know, 50,000 for smashing a racket is a drop in the ocean, because the prize money is so large that it doesn't even affect them generally. So it is essentially like there's no consequences, but I just wanted to clarify that. And I really think that both the tours should be cracking down a lot harder on any violent or intimidating behaviour, because fines just aren't working, because this behaviour is on the rise, particularly on the men's tour.
Yeah, I think then again in the crime and sports thing, they talk about how the silver-haired middle-aged white men making money off of all these people. The players who go out in the second round, they don't behave like that, because for them that £50,000 fine is actually a big deal. If you do that to Djokovic, who makes untold millions every year, it's not going to matter. And if you ban him for getting angry, then so many people will just turn off and go, oh, that's not very interesting. What if he's the only one of the big three that are in a tournament? That really diminishes it.
Well, it opens it up for other players if he banned. Yeah. But I really think, because they've got, like, for example, I'm going to jump in and go on the example of Zverev, who is a player we may have previously mentioned, has allegations of domestic abuse, unproven, but alleged, currently hanging over him. And the tour has done pretty much sod all to investigate this, even though they said they're investigating it. And he also has a lot of anger issues on court. He very nearly hit an umpire with his racket. He was smashing his racket into the chair, really close to the umpire's toes. And for that, he got I can't remember what the word is, but it's like a delayed ban on good behaviour. So if he behaves well, it's like it postpones the ban, and then they'll wipe it if he behaves well enough for a certain period. But really, I think he should have just been straight banned. And then he would perhaps actually take it on board and learn to change his behaviour in the long term, not just for the period that he needs to be on good behaviour.
Yeah, because it's culture that matters more than regulations, because there's a culture of impunity amongst the players, and it requires adults in the room to take their ego out of it and make change.
It can be. I really do sympathise with the umpires who have to control matches when things like this are kicking off. In a way, it's kind of similar to being a moderator, because not only are you trying to deal with everything that's kicking off, you've also got massive egos on the court, and that changes how you moderate and how you mitigate these players massively. I know from working in a certain environment on line where there are certain users who have been on the forum for years and have little cliques and follows, and certain reputations. I know that because of those reputations, and I know the way that they're going to react to moderation, I moderate differently because in some ways I'm a bit fearful about how it's going to go if I choose to do it exactly by the book. And so I change how I moderate. And I think the same is very much true of people who see players like Rafa Nadal, Novak Djokovic, Serena Williams, the big names on the court, and they change what they do because they know people are watching, and this gets people's eyes on the court. This brings in money. So I'm going to change the way I moderate these people.
Yeah, it's I can bring this round to capitalism with how the reason that corporations and the wealthiest people, the two things they care about most are tax cuts and deregulation. The deregulation matters because rules and regulations protect people without power from people with power. There's a rule that you can't have child labor, because when child labor was legal, all the corporations did it because it made them more money. And so that's why you need the adults in the room for. When now this 100 years is a perfect time to go. We're creating a new era of tennis. We've talked to all of the players, all of the fans, and we've put together, particularly the players, all the players, and treat it like a union and say, this is what we've decided. It's a new era. Traditions are great, but those traditions are arbitrary, and they negatively impact some people and positively impact other people, like the white clothing, for example. We could say women's game is growing so much, and in the past that we haven't been open to women. So, for example, like that presenter you mentioned, you said, I'd never thought of that before. Most men, I think, with adults in the room and egos taken out of it, can be educated into making places accessible and comfortable for everyone, and finding out what really matters.
Yeah, I think scheduling and the platform that men's tennis gets compared to women's has a lot to do with why a lot more people enjoy men's tennis more than women's, because women's tennis just doesn't get the airtime in the platform. Take the French Open, for example, this year. They very often schedule the women's matches first because all of the big corporate people who come in for their posh lunches and their hospitality packages have their posh lunches while the women are playing, and then come out in the late afternoon ready for the men to play because they know that's what brings in the money. And it's a long-held thing. Tennis can be very classist, and particularly at Wimbledon. There are places you can't go unless you're not wearing trainers. If you're wearing trainers, you're not allowed into the posh restaurant. You have to be dressed a certain way before you're allowed in. You've got the debenture tickets, which is basically all the people with lots and lots and lots of money who come in and have their hospitality packages and such. And they have the special entrance to centre court and all sorts of things. I could go on, but yeah, the classist elements, particularly obviously at Wimbledon being the only Grand Slam I've gone to, I can't say about the others, but it's very much a thing at Wimbledon, whether it's celebrated or not. Some definitely would, and obviously obviously you've got Hem Hill, which is basically where everyone, all and sundry, go to. And that's obviously really well celebrated and well known about as well. So you've got right from each end of the scale, but it's still very much a thing. There's no sort of level thing. It's very much you're either one end of the scale or you're the other end. if that makes sense. I've rambled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. That's such a good point, because tradition gives resources to people who already have more resources than they
It always
need.
takes me when we sit down in a stadium and we see exactly where all the debenture seats are, because they're always empty for like 50% of the time, because they don't care about tennis. They care about their posh lunches.
And I guarantee that if Elon Musk came in trainers, they wouldn't stop him coming in.
Certainly not from, well, they might do, but yeah.
Who knows?
We've tried to sneak in places before now, and we've been turned away. But yeah.
I was thinking about is the queue still a thing?
Yes, it came back this year. It wasn't there last year, but it's back this year. That's where people camp overnight to get tickets, ground passes, and also resale tickets, where people leave early and then scan their tickets as they leave, and then people coming in late, say after work or whatever, can come in and watch some tennis right into the evening and have those tickets. But yes, the queue's very much still a thing. I've never done it because I don't think I could camp overnight. It's not my idea of fun. So we always tend to get tickets through the ballot, but I know people that do it like religiously every year, and they absolutely love it. And it's a very orderly, very British thing, and it's incredibly well organised from what I gather. Yes.
I think I was just thinking of like accessibility is a class issue as well, isn't it?
It is. Yes, very much. Yes, I would certainly say so, because not everyone can afford the tickets that happen to have particular certain views or sections of seating. I mean, the debenture tickets are like hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And you buy them for the whole fortnight, I think, like on an annual basis. So there's no way that Joe Bloggs is going to be able to afford those seats and those perks. But if you queue for tickets, you can get like a little wristband, and a ground pass is £25 for the early days of the tournament. So you can access Wimbledon in different ways and see different things. But yeah, there are limits to what courts you see and where you can go, depending on how much you've paid to get in.
Do you find it accessible from a physical standpoint?
It's improved. I've been going since 2009, but there are very much still issues. Our biggest problem and our biggest downer this year was the accessible toilets, quote unquote, because we got in about 10:30. We usually arrive about 10:30, and then play on the outside court starts at 11. So as soon as we got in through security, we thought, right, let's head to the loo. We went in on not our normal gate, because they just saw us and let us straight in. Because I, for the first time, was going in Wilma, my electric wheelchair, whereas I'd previously gone in my manual wheelchair. And because Wilma can more easily be put into a car, broken up and put into a car, we thought we'd give her a try this year, and it would save my mum having to push me around and would help us all feel a little bit more independent, which was really great. So they just let us in as soon as they saw us, because that's what they tend to do when people see me in my wheelchair. They'll be like, oh, come this way. So in that way, it was quite good. So back to where we were, and we were looking for a toilet. So I said, oh, there'll be one inside centre court this way, because I have a good memory for where these things are. So we went there and found a little yellow board saying closed for cleaning. We had a knock on the door, and it was indeed being cleaned. So we were like, could you tell us where the next nearest accessible toilet is? And the lady, bless her, had no idea. So we then went on a little bit of a trek around to the other side of centre court, and found another accessible toilet next to one of the food hall places, where they have a lot of strawberries and cream and that sort of thing. went in and found that it was quite dirty inside and that there was no toilet roll. So we had to use our own tissues. And then while we were using the toilet, we had someone outside saying, "Oh, we need more toilet roll for this toilet," because they'd obviously realised a little bit too late. Interestingly, there was a little thing on the wall where you could rate the cleanliness of the toilet with smiley faces. So we both did sad faces because it was pretty dirty. And you'd think they would have cleaned them all ready for the gates to open at 10, whenever they actually open. I can't remember. But they obviously hadn't prioritised that. And the door, because each of the toilets is accessed by a radar key. I don't know if you know what a radar key is, but it's basically a key that allows you to get into pretty much any accessible toilet, because they're locked usually. And the one that we went into had been left open, which of course leaves it open to pretty much anybody using it, just nipping in to skip the queue, which is why we suspect it was probably quite dirty, because someone had probably just nipped in there and perhaps left the door open. We don't know. We were speculating at that point. And then later in the day, when we were sat on court number 1, I went round by myself to the nearest toilet in court number 1 and found that the door didn't actually lock properly. So I then had to use that loo with the anxiety that someone might actually open the door while I was on the loo. I had parked my chair in such a way that it blocked me, but it was still a little bit not okay for the door not to be locking properly, really. So there was just a few issues, and we found the same last year actually when we went into that same first toilet at Centre Court. There was a massive ball of dirt and hair in the corner where it hadn't been cleaned, and the toilet was dirty as well. At that point in the morning, it was again about 11:15ish. So obviously they've got a problem with their cleaning rota and have not prioritised cleaning of the toilets before everyone comes in, which isn't great. It's my little rant. That was the only problem with the day, really. And obviously we know the maps on accessibility have improved greatly. They've put out a lot more wheelchair seating on the smaller outside courts, which never existed a couple of years ago, which is really good, because otherwise you sort of just have to sit behind other people in the stands and try and crane over their heads to sort of have a look in the walkways. There are all sorts of, they do little tweaks every year, which we notice, which have improved things, but there are still some things I think they could definitely do better, and accessible toilets is one of them.
That's a really good so an indication of the culture in tennis, particularly also on the organisational side. Yeah. You mentioned a little bit earlier about the platforming of women's tennis being different, and that's why the men's game is perceived as so much more exciting, exactly, and like people wanting to watch because of the way it's been platformed. Yeah. Jem mentioned a while back an article or a book called The Symbolic Annihilation of Women. Do you remember her saying that?
I think I do, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the how I think since the 50s in media, men have been shown to be absolutely everything under the sun, because that's reflecting the world. Women from that point onwards in the real world were branching out and doing a vast array of things that was growing and growing and growing as time goes by. But in media, TV, films, etc., the only female characters that were shown were mothers, wives, cleaners, secretaries. And so that leads to the perception in the public that women are small and obedient and boring. And that serves to diminish the athletes in tennis. And then that diminishment spreads to disabled people, going, oh, who cares about the disabled toilets?
Yeah.
The people who matter, their hospitality suites are spotless. We don't care about like
Yeah,
the toilets for a disabled person.
I'm not saying that running a tournament like Wimbledon is an easy job, in no way, but you can't really, that's not really acceptable, is it? To turn up for the day and find that you can't access the toilet because it's either being cleaned or dirty or doesn't lock properly, or stuff like that, or you don't have enough toilet paper. It's really something they should have done overnight. And perhaps that's because they can't afford to pay people to clean overnight. I don't know. I don't know what the financial situation of the tournament is. I expect they are trying to recoup a lot of money, having had absolutely no tournament in 2020. But that's still not an excuse for the state of the toilet.
It speaks to the priorities that they have.
Much.
And the fact that you can be fined £50,000 for something on court when
more even, but
it is completely unacceptable in every way that those toilets aren't completely just like any other toilet. That's the stuff that matters. White clothing does not matter. It's an arbitrary thing. Where someone goes to the toilet, that's the stuff that really matters.
I will say in the last couple of years they've also added, I think, 1 or 2 changing places toilets to the site, which is a really positive thing as well. So well done for that, but also work on your other toilets as well.
Yeah. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
That's the simplest thing.
Exactly. But
yeah, for example, Venus Williams, I don't know if it was this year or a few years ago, she was wearing a pink bra.
Yes. Yeah, I remember.
And she was told to change it.
Yeah.
And then she was asked about it at the press conference. She says, "Why do you want to talk about my underwear?"
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. It is just, some of it really defies belief, to be honest. It is quite odd. I don't understand why that matters in terms of what these people are trying to do. They're trying to win tennis matches.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com if you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.